Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. At GearFest 2016, Sweetwater's own Don Carr had a chance to sit down with guitarist Andy Timmons, well known for playing with Danger Danger, his solo albums, and for performances with drummer Simon Phillips. They had a great interview. I think you're really going to enjoy this.
Andy Timmons, man, welcome to
Don
Sweetwater.
Carr. Well, great to be here, and obviously we've known each other
Yeah.
for more than a few years.
Yeah, it goes back.
We have Hoosier and Kentuckian roots in common.
We do.
Only separated by the Ohio.
That's all. It's not much.
But not much more.
No.
That's not much. That's not much. Yes, back in our early first band, I was in Taylor Bay in Evansville, Indiana.
And I was in Troubadour in Henderson,
In
Kentucky.
Henderson, and the first time on vinyl probably for both of us was a radio contest. The home cooking record for KC
103.
Yeah.
Mike Sanders,
What year
right?
was that? 80?
81, maybe?
81, okay.
81, yeah.
All right, well, there you go.
That's funny stuff, man. That goes
Find that
back.
on eBay.
Yeah, good luck.
I've got a copy or
Do
two.
you? I think I have
Yeah.
one.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, good stuff.
This was the best sounding track. Because
Oh,
you went
thanks.
down to Paducah,
I
Kentucky.
know, we went to
Audio
see
creation.
George, yeah.
George Cumbie,
I
which we
know,
later
I
did
know.
on that tip.
Oh, really?
And really had some great recording.
Yeah, I know. George was good.
So
Definitely good.
Anyway, Sweetwater, here we are.
Yeah, here we are at Sweetwater.
GearFest 2016.
Mhm, that's us.
Okay, let me just say, I've ordered some things from Sweetwater in the past. And
right.
you order some things and it shows up and you're like, this is awesome. And they stay in touch.
And you get your candy. And
You get your candy and you're very happy. But I had no idea, I was asked to come up here to participate in the GearFest and really didn't have any idea what I was walking into. I have to say, that just the entire facility, from the theater where I played earlier today, there's this whole outdoor pavilion, and just obviously the offices here and the studios. There's amazing Russ Berger design.
Yeah, right.
So kind of blown away by the whole thing. So
Cool.
anyway, glad to finally make it up here and meet
Good to
all the
have you,
folks.
man. Definitely good to have you.
Yeah, well, so-
Man, and the clinic today was killer, dude.
Oh, thanks, man.
So
Thank
good,
you.
man. So
Nobody
good.
threw anything, which was good. I think that's a record for me, because usually I
right.
get pelted with rocks and
That's right.
garbage.
There were no deaths.
There was
So
nobody.
it was all good.
As far as I know. Yeah.
As far as we know.
No, it was a great crowd, because
Yeah.
you can, when I do these things, meaning a kind of a clinic or a presentation as such, you're playing lots of music, but you want to interact with the crowd.
Right.
And in different parts of the world where you go, some people are very open and interactive, and some people are very shy about things. But I knew immediately that it was just a very easygoing, friendly vibe there when I can bring up Minnie Pearl and Hee Haw and have that many people resonate with what I was saying. So plus I'm in Indiana where I grew up, so there was some common ground. No, it was great, and it was a great crew, great sounding room. The facility really sounded nice. So it just makes it easy to just do what you're supposed to be doing, play some music and then have a chat with the folks. They're always interested in asking about the gear. And that's handy being here, where I think you guys have everything.
Yeah, there's a few things here,
yeah.
including some of your signature stuff.
I think my Ibanez guitars, I have the two signature guitars, and most notably, and I gave the store and Josh heck about this. I have a JHS signature pedal called the AT pedal, you may know about.
Yeah.
But Sweetwater, I guess, collaborated with JHS to make a special run where they changed the colors from red to black and black to red. And I don't have one. They did this while I was away in Europe.
No
so
kidding.
they sent me an idea of the color. I thought, oh, that's great. But they forgot to send me one, and then they were out of them. And so I was like, but then I saw the store has a whole stack of them. So I thought, I'm gonna have to buy my own pedal. And so I said that at my clinic, and Josh was the first one to come up to me after the clinic, and he handed me the pedal.
Oh, nice.
So I got a discount for playing.
Wow. Well, you got something in return, right? For your work.
My name's on it. You think that maybe?
You think, yeah.
No, that was kind of funny. But I tell you, I joked about it in the clinic as I was playing Strawberry Fields. I was some songs you're comfortable enough to where your mind can kind of go a little bit, And so I was saying, I can't wait to go try out some of those pedals. We talked about the Mel 9,
Yeah, right.
So this is a good place to be, folks. If you're a gear nut like I think we all are.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah.
Gear nut, sure.
Yeah. We can geek out on that. So it's been a great start of the day, and then we're still gonna have a concert tonight. The jam coming up. You're gonna be involved in that.
Right. You're gonna sit in, play some
I'm
tunes.
gonna do it.
That'll
I brought my guitar, so let's do it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, okay. More importantly, let's
dear.
talk about.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your records. You have new stuff coming up.
There's lots of new stuff. Yes.
Yeah. Please talk.
It's been a busy year. Did a lot of touring, but over the last couple of years, Mike Dane and I have been kind of working on what will be the next Andy Timmons Band record.
Oh, great.
And this actually, some of the tracks date back to when we did the Sgt. Pepper recordings. We were actually in the studio recording what is now going to be the new Andy Timmons Band record. but extra time became available at the end of those sessions. We had 2 extra days, and my drummer Mitch Marine was like, "Well, you've got these Beatles arrangements you've been talking about. We got 2 extra days. Let's just do it." And that's how that record kind of took flight.
That's funny.
And then that kind of that took on a life of its own because those arrangements were more fleshed out than the new original stuff. So long story short, the newer original material kind of sat for a while as Sgt. Pepper had its life. But then over the last 2 years, Mike Dane and I have reconvened, and he's got a new studio now in his home in Dallas.
Oh, great.
Because he had moved and his old studio was dismantled. So then we got back on track, and now, we have 10 songs ready to go. We're mixing right now, so it's all done. And we did kind of similar to what we did with the Resolution record, where Mike was engineering the guitar tracks. Mm-hmm. But actually, on this record, he is now really the producer, it was kind of always me at the helm, then either with Rob Wexler or Mike kind of co-producing. But there, our relationship has ebbed and flowed since 1988 when Mike and I first started playing together. And I always have respected his ears and his instincts. He's always kind of the cool filter in the band. It's like, I don't know, we shouldn't do that. Yeah. Whatever ideas I might bring forth, and he helps shape them with the way he plays and then just philosophical and just where his ear goes. So the more that we got into it, I said, well, okay, you're mixing this record, which he's never done. And overall, I just started calling him the producer because I felt myself letting go more and really enjoying that. Whereas I used to be kind of like very uptight about every aspect and wanting to have things the way that I intended. But I'm realizing when you have that other person to trust, it's beautiful to let that go and just rely more on their instincts. And of course it's still me and my voice and the way that I hear the music. But I love Mike's direction and where he goes sonically and musically. So it's kind of taken a shape in that way, and I'm loving the results.
Man, that's great. And having a great relationship like that really helps. I mean, it's long term because you get to know each other. He knows what you like, you know what he likes, and
therein lies the strength because if it's all you, controlling all of it, that can be cool, and the level's going to be very high. Mm-hmm. But when it can go back and forth, and you're like helping each other, you know what I mean. And he, like I say, he is really mixing the record. Where usually Rob Wexler has done it for years, but he's kind of not doing it these days. So Mike's getting more and more confidence as we go, but he does rely on me he'll get everything. He calls it the grunt work. He does all which is of course it's not that. He's doing very good. So I come in, it needs a little. So I come in and I whine and he goes, oh yeah, okay. So that's
the grunt work.
So that's how it's been kind of working. But I'm thrilled with the results, so I can't wait to get that out there. I think it should be out in September.
Oh, great!
And then the band's going to get out, and we're finally going to be touring in the States, which we've barely done. Oddly enough, I've been so busy working, with so many other artists and bands over the years, and it was just hard to get out and start from scratch in a van when you have a family. But now there's enough interest, and that the tour I did with Uli John Roth early this year kind of helped me get my foot in the door on a lot of venues across the country. So that was a good tour to do. The new original record should be out in September. We just released a live Resolution live record, which that was the last batch of original tunes. Yeah. So that's just coming out like literally now.
Oh wow!
So on the website and on iTunes and all.
Oh great, man! So the live record, was it across multiple venues? Or
no, this was we actually released a DVD back a couple years after Resolution came out in 2006. The day it was released, we did a live show in Dallas and played the record start to finish, and it was Mike's idea. Well, we should record this. I'm too nervous. I don't want to. Trust me, you're going to want it, right? Yeah. And it just turned out great. The band played great, and the video was okay. It's like, okay. So we put out a DVD maybe in 2007 or 8, I forget. But we never released the audio, which is very common to do. So it's just recently I thought, well, let me just hear the audio. We should put that out. And it was interesting listening to the music without the video, because usually you're watching it on the computer or on the television. But hearing the audio in the studio, I was like, wow, this really sounds great. It was recorded well, and
cool.
And the same guy, Rob Wexler, mixed it. That did the original studio record. I was like, some of it, the live stuff, I like better sonically. So we remastered it, and now it's available. So I think it's nice to have something come out, and then have the new record come out.
Right, yeah, man.
We call it a stopgap, I guess.
No, give it a little boost. That's all.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But we're just happy to get it out there.
Yeah, great, man.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of touring, so
Yes.
okay, so You just did the Uli John Roth, Jennifer Batten tour,
yes.
right? Just finished that. And then right after that, you went out with Simon Phillips. And
yes.
Were you guys in Europe? Is that what it was?
We were in Europe. Well, we were 6 weeks in America with Uli. And then I had 2 weeks off where we finished tracking the record, and then 5 weeks in Europe with Simon. Now, Simon, for those that don't know, I have a fusion band called Protocol. And it's basically Simon's group formed around the idea of some of his early solo records. He and I started working together, touring together in '97.
Right.
And playing his, it's definitely, I call it adult chords and adult rhythms. You know, it's a bit out, it comes from rock and roll, but it's decidedly jazz influence. There's, more advanced harmony and challenging time signatures.
Yeah, with Simon, no kidding.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he's kind of known for that. Yeah. So, but what I love about it is the level of musicianship in the band. Steve Weingart on keys and Ernest Tibbs on bass, and it's, of course, what Simon brings with his depth of knowledge and history, because he's worked with everybody, As a guitar player, when you realize, he's played with Townsend, Page, right. And, Gilmore and Lukather, and all your favorite guys. You're like, okay, I better. So we've now have, since he's left Toto, we've rekindled the Protocol band, and we've done 2 records in the last 3 or 4 years now, Protocol 2 and Protocol 3. And been touring, when we can, and it's been great because it's just stuff I wouldn't do on my own, and it challenges me in a whole different way. So it's been great.
Yeah, that's fun. Okay, so all right, so even getting all this back in perspective, you had the tour with Uli and Jennifer. You had you're taking your own band on the road. You've got your own record. You've done a couple records with Simon recently. You just did the tour with Simon. Man, that's a pretty wide breadth there. How do you balance all that musically?
Well, it's what we talked about. The word you said earlier, appropriate or something. Yeah. But we were having a different conversation. Always trying to be appropriate. Yeah. But that, as you said, that's exactly, what I do and what a lot of my favorite musicians do, And we talked about Olivia Newton-John, which some people might know that I worked with for 15 years.
Yeah, and that's a whole different spectrum.
No, it is, but I treat that exactly the same way that I would. I just want to do what's appropriate for that gig, And I became her music director after the first tour, and I put myself in the position of the fan coming to see the show. Are they worried about blonde guy back there shredding over physical, or they just want to hear those tunes the way they deserve to be presented. And if I'm a fan, I want to kind of hear like the record. It can be a little different, but so that's how I directed the band. It's listen. There's no charts. There's no book on the gig. Listen to the record. That's the sound. That's the part. Yeah. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's the way it always worked. And luckily we had the right group of people. Eventually, some people kind of came and went, but having the right people that have the same respect and the same. Joy about the music and don't mind playing it that way consistently. And that's a different set of chops. Yeah. But I don't put any less value or any less effort into that just because it's a simpler music. In that, it's also difficult in ways. Some of these parts are really hard to get right and really in the way they should be presented.
Yeah, and it's more about being appropriate.
It's being
that's
appropriate.
That's the thing. Knowing the vocabulary and being able to speak the vocabulary of the group and of the music and
absolutely. And the other important thing is just whenever you're coming into the first rehearsal or the tour, sometimes you don't have the luxury of a rehearsal depending on the gig. Yeah. Just having done the homework. Yeah. I've been in situations where maybe certain band members don't come in quite as well prepared, and it makes it hard for everybody. So if you just do the work and come in, and that's how I got the MD position in Olivia's band. Mm-hmm. They saw that the first tour that I did it was an all Australian band that came in with her. And they needed a guitar player at the last minute because Brett Garsett was supposed to do it. He couldn't make it. Yeah. So they got me through Simon. It's one of those things, word of mouth, because they had the same management company, Toto and Olivia. Yeah. And I came in, they saw that, I knew it as well as you could know it. Yeah. And this guy seems to know what's going on. We'll form a US-based group. So it pays off. And when people know that they can rely on you, and trust that you're going to give it the respect and the attention that it deserves, that just helps in general. That's just kind of It's interesting now speaking about it because it seems like it's such a common sense thing, but I've witnessed enough of it not happening around me to realize I guess we need to talk about this. So that is kind of everything. Doing what's appropriate and coming in prepared. That's if you want to be a working musician, that should be at the forefront of your,
right,
your to-do list.
Yeah, professional.
Yeah,
How about professional?
Yeah.
That's always a good.
Exactly. So.
Okay.
So that's the spectrum there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite the spectrum. And the other thing about that is that gets into a very large musical vocabulary. We were also talking about serving the song.
Yes.
Which that's really the key, man.
Sure.
I mean, and kind of circling it back around to the Andy Timmons Band plays Sgt. Pepper.
Right.
That talk about serving the song.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Well,
okay. Give me.
Okay.
I need.
Well, I appreciate that. No, the talking about the Andy Timmons Band plays Sgt. Pepper record. You were asking about what kind of was the catalyst for that.
Yeah, right.
We had done one song. We had done a version of Strawberry Fields Forever, and we were in Italy, and I was playing that tune with the band just on this tour. I don't know when it was. Somewhere in the late 2007, 2008, something like that. And our promoter, Riccardo Capelli in Italy, he recognized the song was really going over really well every night. Because it's kind of true. Everywhere you go, the Beatles is kind of a common language. And the fan base, I guess, was of an age where they were all fans too. So he said, well, next time you come back, you should do a whole night of Beatles. And my first thought was like, are you kidding me? I can't pull that off. I thought, okay, I'm getting away with this one song, and I'm enjoying playing it. But it was after that little negative thought, maybe that has to do with my upbringing in that part of the country down there. I thought, well, what if I did Day in the Life, or not Day in Life, but In My Life, or Help? It kind of became my hobby. Let me see if I can do these other songs. And from my experience in jazz, playing chord melodies, or from the classical trainings that you and I both had from Renato and at the University of Evansville, featuring the melody with some other notes, supporting the harmony. So that's how I approached it. And after a couple years, I think the next one that kind of came under my fingers was Lucy in the Sky, because that nice little doo-doo-doo, that's a little arpeggio keyboard thing laid nicely on the guitar. But I'm not sure at what point I thought, what if I could just play the whole Sgt. Pepper? And it wasn't meant to be, I'm going to make this record, I'm going to redo, because that would have been even a crazier thought. But it became a hobby. It's like it was a personal challenge. I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could sit here just myself and play? And so that's how I did the arrangements. It wasn't, I didn't need the bass player or the drummer. Let me just play the tune.
Yeah.
And like I talked about, I did it from memory. I didn't reference the record. So and there's a couple things that are incorrect that I kept because that's the way I remember it. But without doing any overdubs on the record, I have to feature whatever's at the forefront of the song.
Mix, sure.
If is it the
Whatever
vocal,
point
the vocal, or the guitar chord, or the intro, or even sound effects. I'm trying to, as I hear it in my head, I'm only hearing those important parts. So that kind of helped me edit and filter and make the arrangements in that way. So. And then coming full circle to where we started the conversation about, we were in the studio making that other record.
Yeah.
But I'd had 2 years of kind of working on these for fun, getting it to where I thought it was pretty good. And Mitch was like, let's do it. Okay.
Sure.
And he knew this stuff well. And Mitch is one of the greatest, not many drummers can really get the Ringo thing. It's a very...
There's a swagger
There's
to it,
There's
man.
a swing and a swagger and a joy. And he's,
Yeah.
He's much maligned, I think, as the luckiest drummer in the world. They're the luckiest band in the world, as far as I'm concerned, because those tracks had a feel and a joy that if you can plug in any other drummer from that era, the tracks would have been okay, but they wouldn't have had that specialness, And Mitch can really get that, but has a modern sound, so he was perfect. And I think Mike, he did the 2 days we had, we did all the tracks. We kept all of Mitch's tracks, half of my tracks, and Mike had to kind of learn some of the things because the way I did the arrangements, sometimes the bass couldn't be Paul's original part. I needed support in another way,
areas,
so
right. Filling out a chord or something.
Exactly, or doing a horn line on Good Morning, Good Morning.
Yeah.
The bass is just riding an A, but I'm playing the melody. I said, Mike, I need you to do the sax line. Oh, okay,
Right.
Sounds great on the bass.
Yeah,
and it gets the point of that section. So there was all these kind of give and takes, but it just worked. But even in the course of when I was finishing the other 6 tracks that I needed to redo, my confidence was up and down. Like, okay, this is crazy. This isn't working. It's not in tune. That was the other thing, just trying to tune all these, the open voicings and stuff.
Gosh. Yeah,
it took a while. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about from that, because before I could get away with a lot because if it was just a single guitar track, but maybe you have chords and you're doubling and tracking. Oh, it's chorusing. It sounds great. When it's just one guitar, it's gotta really be sweet. So I learned a lot. I think improved as a musician going through the process. Because when I hear guys like Eric Johnson and Joe Satriani specifically, these guys are really in tune. They've really they figured it out. You know, two very different guitar styles and guitar setups, but both of them always sound really in tune to me. So that, you know, I learn from these guys and try to get better. You know, it's not always perfect because it never will be. But
nah, it's about capturing a performance.
And you want to get the right.
Know,
and certainly for years it was all about that. My first, the Ear Ecstasy record, my first solo CD, there was 4 tracks that are Zoom direct into the board because I thought these are demos. You know what I mean?
Wow,
and it's not the best sound, but there was, because I didn't think I was making a record, it's got this raw, I would never be able to replicate it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because of the energy or the inspiration and the improvisational aspect about it. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got the take. So
I got the
take.
We're done.
Yeah, we're done.
But now I do spend more time trying to get a slightly better tone. Though I do still have my Zoom. Maybe I'll bring it back someday.
Yay,
I want to get a Rockman. That was my tone for a while.
It was, I remember.
Back in the day.
Okay, so you're going to laugh. So the big display out front, did you see that? The big display with all of the old Sweetwater gear?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's like Sweetwater's beginnings and
I'll
all
go
that.
see it, yeah.
My Rockman is in there.
Your Rockman? Oh, dude, he still
and
got
it. Still works, man. It still
now, when you
fires
did the Paducah sessions, were you using a Rockman?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because my first Paducah session, that was the tone. A Rockman through a Legend amp that I borrowed from Dallas. Dallas Pro Shop. Bruce Shepard, God rest his soul, man. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway,
no, I had a
Rockman
super lead. Remember that old super lead I had?
Yes.
That was just my super lead.
Oh, nice. That's why
guitar.
it was a real guitar. You had the Washburn. You had the Washburn, man. Yeah. We were classical majors. I had an Electro Les Paul, and you had a Washburn.
Yeah, right. And we were classical.
Nothing
majors.
says classical like.
Yeah, exactly. classical rock. Perhaps.
Yeah, classic rock. Yes. Now we're classic. Yeah.
Speaking of education.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
6th grade.
Right.
Like
ciphering. You ciphering.
I cipher real good. Yeah.
Okay. So you went to University of Miami.
Yes, but first University.
University of Evansville.
Yeah, right.
And how? Okay. Again, back to the whole breadth of styles and musical depth that you have. Looking back now, how has that served you?
Oh,
that foundation.
It's huge. I mean, initially, you know, of course, the foundation being that I was just in a band. I was in a band from 8th grade on, and that was Glenn and Matt and Lita and Danny and Randy. We had Taylor Bay. Literally, my first gig ever was my 8th grade graduation dance, and that was with Glenn. Also, God rest his soul, he's now gone. But Glenn and I played together till I left town in '83 is when I left for Miami. But so I started at 5, and I was self-taught because I had older brothers that played, and I could kind of figure things out on my own, listening to my Kiss records. Big Ace Frehley fan back in the day, but by the time I was almost 16, you know, I was really aware that this is what I'm going to do, and I need to, you know, I was reading the guitar magazines, Tommy Tedesco's column about being a session guitar player. You remember all that? And, you know, reading about Carlton and Lukather and these guys, that they made their living playing in the studio. I thought, well, again, the thought of making it in a rock band from Indiana, I thought this is such a lottery type situation that, you know, I need to learn how to read. And because I didn't know how to read, I was just all ear by that point, which now I know was the greatest foundation I could have had. And that's a whole nother interview on ear training and all that. But I found a local teacher, Ron Pritchett, who...
I took from Ron, too.
Yeah, okay,
so
I was with him for, you know, at least 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I started when I was just almost had my license, so 16, 17, 18, maybe 4 years. Started from the lesson 1 of the Oahu lesson series, because I hadn't read a note of music, so every lesson was I'd read these simple notes on the treble string or whatever it was. But he knew, I mean, he could see that I could play. So he started, you know, he'd scribble out the changes to Misty or, you know, I Can't Get Started, all these jazz standards. Yeah. And I would have to learn, he had his own chord book that he'd written that now I have several copies of. I went back and visited and had him sign a few copies that I'm going to somehow make use of, if, you know, at some point. But he'd written out all the, you know, not like the Ted Green book of overwhelmingness. It was, here's the voicings you need. Here's what you're going to play. And so he'd have me learn the changes to the standards while he played and soloed and played the melody. But he was playing me records too, Barney Kessel and Joe Pass. He was just, you know, opening my ears up to this different music that I hadn't been exposed to this point, because I was all rock and and like that, and the Beatles. And so, but it was a guitar. I was like, man, how do these guys know what notes to play? I was so inspired by it. And in that time, you know, I was studying with Ron at Weekly, and then I was still playing in Taylor Bay. And we were already gigging. By that time, we were gigging at least 3 nights a week, pretty consistently, from the Red Baron Lounge at the Holiday Inn, or the Funkies, and
oh my gosh,
Dominics, and all these dives we used to play. And so then after my senior year of college, I studied at the University of Evansville. I figured, they offer classical guitar. I know nothing about classical guitar, but I can stay in school, keep mom happy, which we know is very important.
Yeah, stay local.
Stay local. I wasn't really that adventurous about, you know, I'm a homeboy living in this very tight community. And so I kept taking jazz lessons from Ron, and then Renato Bituri, another major impact on my life and my playing. Even though I didn't know much about classical guitar, I started going to the McCullough Library and just checking out Julian Bream and Segovia records.
Yeah.
Which, that's what you should be doing, you know, just listening to the music. Yeah. I auditioned to get into the University of Evansville. I auditioned playing on my Bolton Electra Maple Neck Les Paul, Mood for a Day by Steve Howe. Which is it's nylon string, it's kind of classic, and a very poor version, I'm sure, you know, not even close. But, you know, they could see that I could at least play, and I'm sure they were happy to have anybody enrolling at that point. Anyway, so studying jazz, playing rock 3 nights a week, and then started to learn about classical music. And I was not a dedicated practicer. I did try, you know, did the best I could, but you got to be, you know, all that or nothing, right? But Renato was a beautiful cat in that, you know, he did teach me a lot of the style and really getting the melody to come out quarterly and within the Bach pieces we were working on, or whatever it might be, or Scarlatti. But a couple of lessons that I'll never forget, where I come in, let's just say, a little less than prepared. Yes, as I tell you, come in prepared, do your homework. Right. I wasn't doing my homework.
Well, you learned the hard way, right?
I did. I learned the hard way. But he gracefully, let's try this. And one time he says, okay, we're going to turn the light out and let's just play. So nothing visual to rely on, and we would just completely ears. And I didn't realize the lesson I was getting at the time that it was happening, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
Because he would play something, and I just have to follow it. You know, and that interaction is really the foundation of everything you should be focusing on when you're playing with other people. Not just me. Mm-hmm. What else is happening, and how do I fit in or not, and what do I not play?
Yeah, when do I lead? When do I follow?
Absolutely. And so we did it a couple of times, and I started doing that with other students.
Nice.
Legally, I would keep the lights on, though. let's just say, no. But it was when you find the right person to hang with, and then let's try this. Just okay, we'll turn backs or whatever, and it's a great learning experience, and learning how to react and respond to what's happening around you. And it's like life, you know, somebody says something to you, well, you're going to say something back or not, or you're going to react to it in a certain way. Mm-hmm. And music should be the same thing. It should be that same kind of awareness and interaction, hopefully.
Conversation.
On a good day. On a good day, that's what it's about,
yeah, musical conversation.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, in jazz, that's tantamount, you know. Sometimes when you're doing, like in Olivia's situation, where things are a bit more structured, but you still have to be, you know, where's that downbeat coming? You know, you have to be able to feel that, and the more in tune you are with that, the better that music's going to feel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. One last thing.
Yes, dear.
You've also got some TrueFire lessons that you're doing as well. So speaking of, see, I'm cycling it back around.
You're getting all,
it together.
Because I'll babble, I'll go different directions. Well, the TrueFire thing was a lot of fun because I hadn't really done any in-depth instructional videos. There's been lots of little YouTube clips of, hey, show us a lick, or, you know, whatever, and that's cool. Mm-hmm. But they were the first people to get me to sit down in front of a camera and say, okay, you know, here's an outline, but you got to come up with a curriculum.
Conceptually, yeah.
But they made it so easy, and I'd been kind of a commitment phobe because I'd had a lot of companies over the years kind of ask me to do it. I just never thought, I don't know if I'm going to be treated fairly, and I just kind of kept getting busy doing other things. But I had two different people come up to me and say, man, you should work with the TrueFire folks. They're great people. The deal is fair.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I just kind of took some advice of some friends that were already working for them. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't be happier with the result. They just come in, and if you've got what you know you want to do, and I do some tracks to play with and things to talk about. As you can see, I can babble. I can chat a little bit. So it made it easy. I just had to sit down in front of the camera. Okay, that was fine. Let's try. Yeah. So it was kind of just streamed it, and awesome. But I'm happy with the way it turned out. And the reaction's been great. The first one was called Electric Expression, and it was just a kind of an overview of my general thoughts about music and how I learn and how I can suggest paths to go down.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just the overwhelming amount of material that's available online. I think people feel like they've got to know all these things, and they don't.
Yeah.
You know, and I always talk about Stevie Ray, and I thought, you know, this guy, he didn't know modes, or he couldn't read, and he just didn't need more than beyond the pentatonic and the blues scale to make some of the greatest guitar-based music ever. You know what I mean? And so that's the little nugget I like to plant, is that just really master the simple thing, because that's where the personality comes from. When you recognize a player, you know, on the radio or whenever you're listening to something, it's maybe tone, but the vibrato, and it's that certain signature thing.
The note choice, the space,
it's the simpler things. I mean, all the technique and all that is great and it's handy, but not, you know, it's those other bits that really, for me as a fan and a listener, those are the things that define it for me and go, oh, that's a guy.
Yeah.
That's a girl. That's, you know, whoever it might be, that's what I want to listen to.
Yeah.
It makes me, that draws me in and makes me feel something.
Yeah, cool, man. Andy, always serving the song.
Well,
man.
trying
Daggone.
to. It's so good to reconnect with you, man,
Yeah,
because we've been crossing
absolutely.
paths on and off.
Absolutely.
We didn't even know we were in Denton, Texas at the same time.
I know. How weird is that?
That's pretty
Probably
crazy.
for about 6 months or
6
something
months, because
crazy
I
like
moved
that.
there in August of '85, and you said you left in '86.
Yeah.
We keep crawling. He's following me, folks. Or I'm
it
following
is.
him.
It's
Nobody
creepy. Who
knows.
knows?
I just
Yeah.
want that Washburn, actually.
I still got it.
Nice. My
All right.
Electra was stolen. I'm very sad.
Aw,
I know. I'm still
bummer.
looking for it.
Stolen. Oh, well. All right.
Luckily, the band had insurance, though.
Oh, good. Good. You got your $50 back then.
It
Bada boom.
was my first good guitar. Oh, and it turns out the Electra guitars were made at the same factory as Ibanez
Oh, no kidding.
and Fujigan.
Talk about full circle.
Woo!
Wow. Okay,
Chills.
man. Thanks, Andy.
Chills on that one.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you,
Seriously, I
Doc.
appreciate
Thank you.
it, man.
Thank you, man.
Thanks
Happy
for
to be
being
here.
Yeah.
Sweetwater buddies,
All
man.
right.
Right on.
All right.